All right, hey there, folks, and it's Brian with Foxfire Armory, and today we have got a lot of stuff to get through. So we're just going to jump right into it, and the first thing that we got to talk about are going to be the price hikes. And this is going to cover everything from your energy costs, from your food costs, from your standard consumer good costs. Everything is going up. And part of the big reason for that is right now, we have a multitude of things kind of happening that are ultimately going to lead to these price hikes, right? So the first we just saw today, natural gas broke $8. And so for those of you who don't have to worry about that kind of thing, majority of the population uses natural gas in some form or another, whether that is their cooking fuel, heating their homes, even some like AC style units and whatever will use natural gas. People's generators use natural gas. Hopefully those people with those whole house generators running off natural gas, I hope you have a backup method for those generators, because ultimately these price hikes, they're coming. It is what it is at this point. And I'm predicting probably within the next 60 to 90 days is when we're truly going to see these price increases start to kind of trickle their way into our daily lives. Here by me, We Energies, who is probably the largest energy provider here in Wisconsin, was talking about a 72% increase to electric and gas. Okay, so they supply both the natural gas and the electricity to majority of the people here in Wisconsin. And a 72% increase it would just be massive. It would just be too much for even myself to be able to handle. That would just literally price me out of being able to afford to run my stove, to run my cooktop, to run my furnace ever, right? It would be impractical and not cost prohibitive to do so, especially saying just the 30% increase what it did this last year in 2021. So those are coming down the pipe. Keep that in mind as you are stocking anything aside for cook fuel, for propane type stuff, or any sort of emergency fuel, diesel, or actual petroleum fuel like you would put in your car. So those things are definitely going to be something that you're going to want to keep an eye on. Watch the prices of those. If things do seem to dip, might be a time to actually pick those up. I know they're talking right now liquid propane, so like your standard 5-gallon propane tanks. I think by me they're anywhere from $18 to $20. Those very well could be in the $25 to $30 range here, and that's on the refill side of things. So brand new right now, I believe they're $60. I don't know what they're estimating the cost to be on that would be, but the refills, they're talking somewhere in that $23 range. So to go along with that, the continued supply chain issues obviously are not helping the matter one bit. So China is talking about shutting down the Beijing port. We have the US that is actually taking ships from the West Coast, and they are actually rerouting and going all the way over to the East Coast because they're thinking they'll be able to offload these ships quicker and actually be able to get through some of this backlog. Now, I don't know about you, but that does not spell confidence for me. That just means that it is such a mess out there that these things are they're not getting better, and they're trying to find workarounds to get through this. The other part to that, and this is what I'm hearing from people that I know that are in the industry and just from what I'm seeing from job postings and that kind of thing, is there's just not enough truckers. Now, everyone likes to say there's no trucker shortage, right? Well, the reality of that matter is, yes, there is a trucker shortage. It's not that we are losing truckers, although we're starting to see them talking, like owner-operators specifically, talking about just stopping, right? Because it's cost prohibitive at this point due to the cost of diesel for them to keep these loans on these trucks. The problem is they can't hire new drivers, right? The restrictions to get your CDL, and a lot of these companies are looking for people that have had multiple years of experience driving. It's causing that shortage, right? It's not that we are losing drivers necessarily. It's the fact that we can't increase the number of drivers for the increased demand in shipping that we have right now. And obviously the shipping demand is due to the supply chain crisis that we currently have. So it's all just kind of a cascading effect, unfortunately, and it's here to stay at least for the foreseeable future. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about, and it's something that I really just dislike talking about, and that is the food shortages that are coming down the pipe. And this is something that myself and a few others who are definitely knee deep in keeping up on these things have been kind of harping on for a while now. And personally, I've now reached out and spoken to quite a few farmers in the Wisconsin area and a few farmers in the Iowa area also. And what I'm hearing is just not what you would want to hear. The cost of feed, the cost of fertilizer, and the issues with getting those resources basically have now stretched a lot of these farms super thin. And especially here in Wisconsin, they're projecting to have a lower yield, right? So less crop this year. The other part to that is the planting season is now going to be a little bit later. So crops are not going to be getting planted potentially until June this year due to some of these supply chain issues, which means the crops will not be harvested until later on. And that's barring how much of that yield actually survives, right? So the later you get into the October, November, December months, if you're still trying to harvest your crops, the likelihood of those crops dying or diseasing out is much higher at that point, right? So the other piece to go along with that is, as we've talked about on the channel, these food plant fires. Now, Purdue in Chesapeake, I believe it was North Carolina, just had a catastrophic fire in their plant. Now, it seems like the plant itself is still standing, but majority of the essentially conveyor belt systems and processing part of the plant is just wiped out. And for those of you who don't know, Purdue, obviously they manufacture chicken and some other goods. I think this is the 17th or 18th one. I'd have to go back and check my numbers. But there's no way that's a coincidence at that point, right? There's been just too many of these, and they continuously keep happening. So either these factories are just not being inspected, or they're not maintaining it, or they don't have the money to maintain it, whatever it may be. If you don't want to go the conspiracy route, or if you want to go the conspiracy route, this is all planned, right? You starve out a population, you create chaos, and that's a way to kind of cull the population mass, right? And we've had people like Bill Gates and George Soros and all these, Klaus Schwab, talking about how we need to reduce the world population. So could this all be coincidental? Possibly. Could it all be coordinated? Very likely. I'm not a 1% a leader, so I'll never know, right? It's the 0.1% of the 1% that essentially run the world anyway. So I'm just going to do what I can do, and I recommend you guys do the same. Just focus on the things that you can control, because really all this other stuff, it's just noise. But I'm giving you the information to try to help you prepare for yourself and your family as best as you can. So with these food plants and everything, the explosions, the fires, the planes crashing into them, the next thing to come with that, along with the supply chain disruptions that have essentially continued now for the last 2 years, is going to be empty grocery store shelves. We're going to see more of them. Food scarcity is going to continue to increase, and prices in turn obviously are going to go up. It just kind of is what it is. We've been through this cycle now of things coming off the shelf, coming back on the shelf. Now, I've been shopping in quite a few different locations, quite a few different stores, and one thing that I can definitely say is, doesn't matter where you are, prices are up. They are up by a lot, and they're going to keep going up. And I was just in a Woodman's in Illinois, and they seemed pretty well stocked. Their shelves looked pretty full. They had a lot of inventory in there, and they had pretty good quantity of all the inventory. Now, by me, specifically the Woodman's, it is, half empty across the store, and that will cycle through. So you'll have, the frozen department that's out, you'll have the produce that's, fairly out. The pasta section has been pretty sparse lately. Certain canned goods have been coming off the shelves and limited quantities coming back. So it's all stuff just to keep in mind as you're going through your day-to-day grocery shopping, that kind of stuff. And if you can afford to do it, definitely start picking up a little bit extra as you go to the stores. I mean, it's just, what's the worst you're going to do? You're going to eat it, right? So you really can't go wrong with that one. So to go back to the China quickly, the talks of the port closures and shutting down Beijing and other ports around China, because they're, for whatever reason, getting really big into the COVID lockdowns again due to their zero COVID policy. The big thing to take from that is, A, the goods that ship out of China are obviously going to be delayed, and our export is going to be delayed going into China. So obviously trade goes both ways, and that is going to hurt us on both sides, unfortunately, because we do have a huge dependence on certain goods from China. Now, one of those actually that has been a massive driver here in the United States because we've reduced production is steel. And Russia and China are probably two of the largest producers of steel in the world outside of the United States. And obviously the war in Ukraine with Russia is not going to be giving us steel. And China shutting down ports means they aren't going to be exporting their steel to us for the plain and simple fact, if their ports are closed, nothing is going in and out of those ports. On top of that, if we're not, shipping our goods over to China that they continually buy from us, we're going to run into issues where we're going to see the economy falter more. We just saw a negative 1.4% GDP. That is some of the lowest GDP that we have seen probably in the past 2-3 decades. And it doesn't seem to be getting better. Combine that with the record inflation we're seeing, it's just a bad situation all around. And, I don't say this stuff to scare you guys. I'm not trying to fearmonger. The reality is I'm just trying to give you the information for you to do with as you see fit and to use as you best see fit. For me, I'm doing things like getting cooking fuel and stockpiling, food stores for my family in the case of an extended emergency. I wish I had more. I wish I had the funds to go out and buy more. And I'm sure there's many of you out there who feel the same. But every little bit you can do to try to weather the storm that is coming, because it is coming, is going to be instrumental in making sure that you and your family stay safe, stay fed, and are able to kind of ride out what I'm hoping is just a period of very poor performance from the United States. So the last couple of things I just wanted to touch on real quick is Walmart is now talking about shutting down more stores. So for those of you who grew up in the boom of the Walmarts and the Targets like myself, you know how quickly they expanded all these stores, and you had Sam's Clubs and Costco's and all this stuff popping up very, very quickly. With the onset of all the riots and everything that happened the summer of 2020 and all the continued theft and the high crime rate that has continually risen over the last 2 years, which has led to more and more of these basically swoop and dive style theft rings going in, snatching up a bunch of stuff and running out. And a lot of these states are basically not prosecuting this, and they just don't care. The DAs, it's like, whatever, let them have it. And so you're seeing CVS moving out of, Walgreens shutting down and basically moving out of San Francisco completely. You have now Walmart shutting down stores across the country in a lot of these zones, which is just going to lead ultimately to higher crime and other issues, that kind of go along with that. The other thing is Lake Mead. We are not in the summer yet, so keep that in mind when I say this, is seeing a unprecedented drought. Now, many people can go and say, oh, it's climate change, it's a climate crisis, it's this, it's that. The reality is, this is all man-made, manufactured. Too much of Lake Mead is being pumped out, and it's not being given the time to replenish itself. And you can call that a climate crisis, but ultimately, if it's man-made, manufactured, the lake is going to replenish itself eventually if we stop messing with it, right? And it just kind of, it's another one of those things to, put the cherry on top of the sundae, and it is what it is. It's just, another notch for everything going on right now. So if you're in that area, or you're in the California area who gets a lot of their water imported, expect to see basically water rationing and water shutoffs happening in those areas this summer, because I'm assuming that is probably coming. What goes along with that then, on top of that, is the wildfires. If the water's not there, and if they're not doing the type of cleanup that they need to do, which they never do in California, especially because they think, hey, let Mother Nature do its thing. Well, to let you know, Mother Nature burns the stuff to the ground. I was going to swear there because, hey, it's kind of something I'm passionate about, and that's conservation. And if you don't clean forest beds, you're just asking for it. Mother Nature burns stuff to the ground to reset. It's just the way it works. I'm sorry to all the tree huggers out there, but that's just the way things work. Mother Nature is a you-know-what. And so the last piece to touch on is going to be the seed shortage that we are currently seeing. Now, for those of you who have heirloom seeds and are planting and you're storing your own seeds, this really won't matter to you too much. But for those of you who go to the store to buy your pumpkin seeds, your corn, your green beans, your broccoli, your cucumbers, whatever else, seed prices are going to go up. They've already gone up. I know by me, they've gone up by at least 50 cents over the previous year. So that basically, to me, just says kind of like what we saw in 2020. Government doesn't want you self-sufficient, which means you need to be more self-sufficient. And so I'm going to leave it there for this video. So until next time, it's Brian with Foxfire Armory. If you like the content, please like, share, subscribe, and it's the best thing you can do to help the channel grow. Stay safe out there, folks.